Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thundershots podcast. So, really, this podcast is intended to help bridge the gap between young players and high-level soccer players. So, we understand the problem that we see is that there's a very large disconnect between young players and parents expect from high-level soccer and what they actually get. High-level or high school soccer can seem like a very daunting stage. There's a lot of unknowns going into it, and some people tend to fall into certain pitfalls while actually leading their kids up to that stage. And also, soccer is just a very powerful sport. We feel like besides just being a good sport overall, the culture behind it is so powerful. It can do so much in the world. We really want to highlight all the different aspects of soccer. My name is Srikar.
My name is Trevor, and we will introduce our guest later on. Currently, I am a junior at Limburg High School, and I play club for Santa Clara Sporting.
I'm a senior at Limburg. I play for D as a force right now.
All right, so getting just a little bit more about the podcast, we'll start with like a brief problem solution of what we've seen. As Srikar said before, there's a large disconnect between what young players and their parents can expect from high-level soccer and what they'll actually get. And high school soccer can again seem like a very daunting stage. It is definitely a step up from middle school soccer per se, and a lot of parents will fall into potentially pitfalls that will obstruct the path of their kids that leads up to that stage. And our solution via this podcast help allow these young players to get a wider view into the world we live in with soccer. We would talk on this podcast about important concepts that could help guide growing players along their paths. Thundershots would be the perfect platform to get this started, and this initiative could also draw people in from new demographics. This is very important for us as we've all sort of are going through or have gone through the school soccer systems and along with that high level competitive soccer. And we feel like we really want to reach out into the community and sort of give back and share important information we feel like would be incredibly helpful. And I'd like to give a brief rundown of potential topics we might have. What we'll cover today is soccer and its global impact. In dealing with injuries among athletes, what competitive club soccer is like, what school soccer is like, what it means to be a captain, balancing soccer with school and other commitments, and other topics that sort of encapsulate the soccer experience. So right now I'd like to introduce our guests to today. We have our CEO of the organization. Arnav, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what club you play for, how old you are, just sort of that before we get into your role at the Thundershots.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Arnav. I'm a rising senior at Limburg High School, and I play school competitive soccer, and I play for Liverpool for my club.
Great. Okay. What is your role at the Thundershots?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thundershots, and just to put the mission out there again, our mission is to help every athlete reach their highest potential.
What were your reasons for helping co-found the organization?
Right, so it really started in May of 2020, and that's when, in somewhere around March, that's when the COVID-19 pandemic really got its name and really started to take a lot more precedence. So it was really about me thinking about, okay, how can we get people to get out there and play some soccer again by playing in the right precautions and in safe conditions. And that's when I really start to think if there's a way that I can really start to hold soccer practices for kids in safe conditions. And that's when I started to reach out to a few of my friends who I thought we could potentially start a soccer practices with. And that's how the idea really started. It was really because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because literally everyone was staying at home and we really wanted people to start coming out a little bit and play a little bit outdoor sports, because it's a great way to interact, build social, leadership, teamwork skills, which we thought people were really lacking out on by staying at home for so long. So that's really one of the main reasons we started this organization. And we all had a lot of soccer experience. This is a sport that a lot of the people who started this organization played as well. So we really knew the ins and outs of the game and how we can also use it to leverage some of the social leadership and teamwork skills that people can learn through it on top of the technical skills that they gain with it. So yeah, that's really the reason we started this organization.
And my final base question here, where do you think the future of the organization lies?
Right. So we've conducted around more than 100 training sessions now locally, and that's when we start to go more global. So maybe we'll get a bit later into the podcast about this, but we've done a few global projects now. But now it's really about taking some of our learnings over the past year and connecting with other organizations around the world, and specifically orphanages. We'll get to that in a bit, hopefully, but we've been connecting with different orphanages around the world to do some of the projects like letter writing campaigns or soccer virtual webinars, in addition to the local practices we do, because we really want to make an impact for underprivileged kids globally.
All right, that's great. Thanks, Arnav, for sharing all of that. It's time to move to our big topic of the podcast, soccer and its impact globally. So let's start with personal impact. What has soccer done for you? And I guess we'll all go around and say what soccer done for us. So I can go first. I actually, compared to a lot of other people, I feel like I picked up soccer a lot later. I didn't start playing competitive soccer till I think spring of my 5th grade year, but I like fell in love with it, and it's been like my life ever since. I've dedicated a lot of time, a lot of effort to soccer. But I feel like soccer's impact, the way soccer has the ability to bring people across the world together to watch these massive sporting events. I don't know if you've seen comparisons of like the World Cup finals viewership versus like the Super Bowl viewership. And it's like Super Bowl had, I don't know, however many, it's like 147 million viewers, while the World Cup in total had like 1 billion viewers. It really shows the scale and how worldwide soccer really is. And it sort of opened my eyes to the possibilities per se. I love playing soccer. I love my teammates. The sport brings us together as a family more than a team, both at school and at club. But yeah, it's really just it's almost shaped the way I think now. It's a massive part of my life. And I think soccer really, its impact has done a lot for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I really agree with that. Actually, I've been playing soccer since around kindergarten. I feel like it's really kind of just implanted a way of thinking in my head. Like, obviously, teamwork is a very big part of soccer, right? You can't really play on your own. You have to be able to incorporate and lead a whole team. And like in real life, that's definitely something I've started to apply to, all of my endeavors and things like that. And soccer, just as a whole, I feel like there's so much more to do with it, like in terms of leadership skills, like I said, you have to be able to lead. I'm a center back, right? So I see the entire field. I might not really do too much in a game besides, controlling the ball and leading the team. But really, it's all about being able to lead, right? What separates a good defender from a great one is being able to lead the whole team, using their vision and things like that. And I think that soccer has really just helped me incorporate all of that.
Right. You guys bring up great points about how it helps you get a family together, how it builds a family, teamwork, and these leadership skills. Yeah, personally for me, I lived in India for around 8 years, and I started playing soccer over there. And when I really moved to the US, that's when soccer really helped me out, because in 6th grade, I moved to the United States, and I didn't really have any friends, and a lot of my culture was a lot more different than the culture here in the United States. So soccer was just a great way for me to really dive into the culture a little bit, get to learn more about the culture, get to know some more people and make some friends. That's really what soccer did for me, because it was just a sport that was that was just a sport that I can bond with people through, with some of my friends that I've created. And you guys also, like all of you guys, I became friends with you guys through soccer itself, and that's how our friendship has progressed. So yeah, soccer has just helped me create so many friendships personally at a personal level, helped me learn more about the US culture, and of course, made me feel part more of a family in the United States.
I think it's interesting that you bring up the international aspect too, because that happened to me too. I feel like in elementary school, I moved to India, and over there, it was like, getting adjusted to the cultural climate was just so weird at first. But like every day, I would go down and play soccer with like all the boys in the apartment, and it was so fun. I feel like like you said, it's all about making connections.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like quite the experience sort of soccer's brought in. So let's move a step up. Let's go up from our personal lives and impact in our communities. What scale do you think soccer sort of had impacting your community? I know for sure the Bay Area has a lot of soccer within it. I feel like California has a lot of soccer in comparison to the rest of the United States, but it's also almost nowhere in comparison to countries around the world, like in Europe or in South America or Africa and stuff like that. So how large would you say soccer is in comparison in sort of the communal areas?
That's a good question, actually. I think locally, it's clear to see, like you said, that soccer has like a big part in everyone's lives. Like kids are getting brought up playing soccer, and I think that impact can really be seen with organizations like ours, actually, and like other organizations in the area, because people are kind of using soccer as like an avenue to talk about greater social things. And locally, I think this is really important for our community.
And yeah, personally for me, specifically in the Bay Area, a lot of the kids here are a lot just about academics, and they focus a lot on that, and not really they just play sports maybe just a little bit, and it's not as you said, Trevor, it's not as popular as say people playing sports in Europe or other places around the world. So yeah, in terms of our community, that's really why we also started this organization, to really get people out of their homes and really helping them out, getting prepared for high school soccer, maybe even college soccer, kind of teaching them these skills along the way, because of course these skills will also help you out in real life, in your academic life, besides playing the sport itself. So in terms of the aspect of community, soccer's it's had a profound impact on the kids, at least that we have coached and have taught, because we've loved to see the progress that they've made over the past year, in terms of how much the impact it has on our community.
Yeah, going actually along like the community route too, yeah. I guess Bay Area doesn't really do it like this, and I think most teams don't do it anymore. But it's like, how club teams are sort of, they're a general area, right? But I've had my cousin in Boston, he plays for like his city's team. And I was thinking, I'm actually unaware if like European and South American clubs do that as well, because I know there's always like the academies for the professional clubs. But what do you think? Do you think there's any major differences between like a city's club team versus just a club team created under, I guess, a soccer club that isn't necessarily carrying the city's name?
I think it's like an interesting thing to think about. Like realistically, in our club teams, what we see is that there's players from all over the Bay Area. Like I know people on my team who are from like Hollister, coming from like San Francisco and stuff. So I feel like these club teams that are kind of private allow so many more people to come together, whereas like a city team might kind of be restricted to a city. I'm not really familiar with like the whole city system.
Right, and I kind of see positives on both the side. For me personally, you're in a club team, you have, as Srikar said, people coming from diverse backgrounds, and you're getting to know about different cultures, learning about them, and bonding over the game of soccer. So it's just a great way to bring people of different backgrounds together, especially in the problems we see in today's world. There's a lot of problems with people bonding with each other, and people from different backgrounds are not really able to blend in. And we really think that, as you guys mentioned, soccer is a great way for these diverse people to come together through the club. But going back to the city aspect, especially during times like COVID, everyone has been quite separated. So if kids are playing for their city's teams, I think it's a great way to bring like the city together, and cheer about something. So I can see positives on both sides and see how both sides might be thinking about the situation.
Yeah, speaking about bringing people together, how do you guys feel about the school soccer environment versus the club soccer environment? Because I feel like they have very different atmospheres in what how the team feels about how you should play. Personally, I feel like competitive club soccer is almost always about winning. It's always what's the best fit for the team, and it's not, you're never really playing for your club, you never really, I always feel like the school soccer bonds where you're playing with more so your friends you see every day, the bonds in that team are stronger than your the bonds at your club team. But your club team, because you just play soccer with each other so much, that team can usually be better as a functioning team. And then your school soccer team, what are your guys' viewpoints on how those balance?
I don't know. I think like part of that is true. Like definitely at school, it's not just about the school soccer, right? You actually go to school with these kids. You're like really good friends with all of them. So like school as a whole is usually like very casual. It's all about having fun. Whereas the competitive side, it's competitive. You're trying to win. But I do think that with soccer, you can just make such strong bonds. Like some of my closest friends have definitely just been through club soccer.
Yeah. Personally, for me, yeah, I'm a little bit on the side of Trevor as well, and partly what Srikar said. Yeah, club soccer for me, like I also moved clubs a little bit, but for the clubs that I've stayed in a long time for, the bonds are definitely not as strong as the bonds that I've created in school through soccer, because the people in school you pretty much see every single day, but in the club, it's really just about soccer, just going to your practice, really focusing on getting the skills right, working hard every single time. In school soccer, you can lay back a little bit sometimes, but club soccer, it's really just about getting that dub. And school soccer may just be like having some fun, maybe just a break a little bit from school, but but at the same time, once you go to varsity and higher levels of school soccer, then it also starts to get more about getting that win. But before, when you do time into like school soccer, it can kind of be on the side of, oh, I don't want to put in too much effort. But at the same time, it is really, really important to put in the effort into school soccer at the same time, because it does take there are cuts and everything that the coaches have to go through, and it's really important to take these positions and the spot on the team very with a lot of pride, and just like not taking it too easily.
It's also different for different schools, right? Like we all go to Limbrook, where we're not really like known for being a very sports team, like a sports oriented team. But schools like it's like Bellarmine and stuff, they're competing like nationally for high school. So like depending on that kind of level, I feel like soccer can be really big for high school too, like very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good save at the second half of your explanation there. I think Srikar would have benched you next season if you had continued with such a lax attitude.
You can't be slacking, right?
That was only initially, guys. I learned.
Of course. Yeah. Gonna do sprints for the whole next practice. Okay, so we sort of talked about impact of soccer through communities on the school soccer versus club soccer side. We can sort of expand to the world, and we can actually talk about that in conjunction with what the Thundershots' global projects have been. So I guess we can start, actually, I think Arnav, you can start us off. What have the Thundershots' global projects been, and their conjunction with how soccer sort of shapes the world?
Mm-hmm. Right, so playing soccer and all that is like really important. It's a great way for you personally, but at the same time, it's really also about giving back rather than always getting. So that's really what we're trying to do with these Thundershot School projects, is really find places, underprivileged communities where people love to play soccer, but they can get more, they can learn more, something that they've not been getting from the past times. So kind of the first global project that Thundershots did when we did go global was our Peru virtual soccer webinar. And this is really, we came into partnership with an organization called Paper Bridges, which is in connect with many orphanages around the world. And we partnered with them. And that's how we got connected with an orphanage called Casa Hogar in Peru. And we were talking about what kind of projects that we can do. So there was letter writing campaigns and multiple things on the table. But the kids there, they just love to play soccer. They played soccer like 3 to 4 hours every single day on rough concrete. There was actually like a grass field and rough concrete, but the kids always used to play on the concrete for some reason. I think they just liked it more. But going back to the global project that we actually did, I'm just trying to show the love that they had for the sport. So that's when we came up with the idea of doing a virtual soccer webinar with these kids, because of course, due to COVID, we couldn't really be with them. Plus it's in a different country. So that's really how the Thundershots Global project started. And there were multiple issues that did come up as to how we're actually going to do the logistics of the webinar. Like, do all of them have like an iPad or something that they can connect with through the webinar, or there's like that language barrier that we have. And sometimes the drills might not exactly understand those drills. There might not be enough space. There might not be enough soccer balls and things like that. So there was a lot of questions that come up, because on the top of it, when you just think of a virtual soccer webinar, it's just like, okay, you're just teaching them some soccer, but it's a lot more than that. It's also about teaching them leadership, teamwork skills, along with some of the prompts that I've also mentioned. So it was a pretty long process. It was like a 2 to 3 month process, but it was a great process to go through at the same time. There was a lot of learning, and to also solve some of these problems, we also connected with another organization called LACES, which supports, I believe, refugee camps, and they're a lot based in Liberia and really helping kids out there. So we got like translators as well to really help us out with translating some of the things that we were talking about. So it was a great experience. And at the end of the day, even though the webinar didn't go perfectly and exactly as planned, it was just great to see the smiles and the laughter that was coming out when the kids were playing soccer and some of the drills that we were doing with them. So that's really how our global projects really started. And one other project that I just wanted to mention was one that we did with an organization called IACT, which supports refugee camps in Africa. They help a lot with countries in, say, Chad, and countries around that region. So their internet connection was like the internet connection in Chad was a little too bad, so we couldn't really interact with the kids. But we did write a blog. So Trevor, Andrew, you guys know, you guys were the ones who wrote that blog. But that blog was, again, about how soccer is a great way to bring the community together and how can connect different worlds. So we got to learn more about their culture and more about our culture, how soccer works, how soccer impacts their lives, and how soccer impacts our life. And kind of just seeing the profound impact that soccer had was just a great way to conduct this project. And we also shared the blog that we had with the kids out here in Thundershots and kind of just showed them the kind of impact that soccer has in different communities. So through these global projects, it was very fun to do. And at the same time, we got a lot of learnings out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just like seeing the smiles on those kids during the webinar, and like just something simple like doing some drills with this, I think it's like really crazy to see how much it can do for kids. Like Arnav, I know you went in person actually like recently. How was that?
Yeah, so when I'm going back quickly to the virtual soccer webinar, after the webinar was over, I'm like, I want to be with these kids. Like, I want to play soccer with them, not just see them. So that's really when I'm like starting to think about, okay, can I maybe go to Peru this summer? But there was a lot of question marks as to whether we can go or not, because these kids hadn't had a visitor in over a year. The political situation in Peru was really, really bad. There was two extremist leaders fighting for president, and the communists as one, I believe. But it's really, really bad. The situation, the COVID situation there is bad. One of the highest death rates over there. So I was initially a little bit hesitant to actually go on that trip to Peru, but I just really wanted to be with the kids. So putting all those things aside, with all the precautions taken, I did eventually go there to Peru, and it was a life-changing experience for me. I got to learn so much, just a different culture altogether. It was very, very different. And I would say like hearing about these stories is something, but being with the kids and kind of living their life is something completely different. And you can't really get that experience until you are with these kids. So I'm just to kind of put it in perspective, these kids are coming from families where either their parents have been in prison for so many years, their parents have died, their parents have been living in poverty, or their parents may have been sexually abused them before, or just really, really torn backgrounds that these kids are coming from. And getting to hear these stories really taught me how privileged the lives that we are living, and some of the things that we take for granted, these kids can't. I was living on lentils and rice every single day. Sometimes we didn't have dinner, which was kind of like, oh wow, like this is something that we personally don't experience, but kind of just seeing that and living through that was a completely different experience. But yeah, the one thing that they all love to do, despite whatever personal problems that they were going through, was soccer. Every single day around 3 or 4 p.m., we would go out and just have just a great time playing some soccer. Like people of different ages, different genders, just seeing that equality, seeing The way these people were connecting together through the sport was just amazing. And even though we didn't speak the same language, I spoke a little bit of Spanish, but I could kind of understand them. But just playing the sport itself, that's how I really started to bond with these kids and really build a connection. And that's how some of the other things that happen in the future were built. So yeah, it was a truly life-changing experience for me, I would say, when I went to the orphanage in Peru.
Yeah, I have a much less intriguing and much less life-changing story, but my sort of experience with the global impact of soccer was like way back in, let's see, 2014. My family traveled to Norway, and we were visiting some of my mother's work colleagues back when she used to travel a bunch. So we were in like Kirkenes. It's this tiny island north of Norway, still part of Norway, that's in like the Arctic Circle. And we were in the summer, so it wasn't that bad, but it did mean it was daylight like 20 hours of the day. It was, you couldn't sleep because the sun was always up. But I remember playing soccer with whatever my mom's colleague's son was, and we'd go down to this little astroturf field, I don't know, maybe 5 blocks away from the home, and we'd kick a ball around. And it's like, I think they taught English there, but English was a second language, and we couldn't really communicate that well. But I still remember like shooting on goal with him and passing the ball around and juggling and showing off tricks and stuff. And it was a really fun time, because it was like, wow, I can connect through this person who I basically have no connection with through soccer, and who lives on like the other side of the world from me. And it felt really cool to just have that opportunity and stuff.
Yeah, I think like I kind of talked about it a little bit before, but when I went to India, it was like getting into the culture was like super weird for me. Like I remember on the first day of school, I was like first grade or something. I cried my eyes out. But then like as I started to get more into it, you know, the boys at the apartment, we would all go down and play soccer together. And I learned so much about them, and they definitely learned a lot about me too. You know, I learned, that's how I picked up a lot of my Hindi, just from, you know, hanging out with them. And just in general, I learned so much about India just through that.
Yeah.
And then also I think like if we look at like an even larger scale, like if we look at the professional scene right now, you can see so much about like how they're addressing like larger scale topics. You know, like seeing all like, you know, the English Premier League players kneeling, taking a knee for Black Lives Matter. I think it's just so powerful that they're using their position that soccer has given them to really make an impact on the world.
Yeah, and soccer's
go ahead, Trevor.
Okay, soccer's definitely now become a platform to like speak out against some of the injustices in the world, because it brings so many people together, and it makes so many people listen, using it as a platform to sort of draw people in for better things is definitely, I think, the right thing to do. And especially because the sport is so powerful already, using its cause for good is yeah, again, definitely the right thing to do. As you were saying, Arnav?
Yeah, I was kind of saying the same thing. I think social justice issues have started to take a major role in sports in general now, not just soccer, I would say. But they have become very prevalent as well in the world that we're living in today. And it's great to see how sports teams and players are taking stance on these issues, like Black Lives Matter and things like that. So it's just great to see that. And it's also just using their platforms, because a lot of us don't have like these platforms where we can like really send these messages out there. But these big players are just using their platforms to really talk about these different social justice issues. And these can be hard to talk about, and they can be a little controversial, but at the same time, it's also really important to have some of these uncomfortable conversations so that our world can become a better place. So it's really great to see how sports is just incorporating more of these social justice issues into their culture.
I think a player who's really like stood out on that is like Marcus Rashford, right? Like he's just been going crazy with like helping out everywhere.
Right. Yeah, and also talking about the Euros real quick. When actually, yeah, you can talk about Rashford in a sec, but after the Euros were over, like in the finals, when Sancho, Saka, and Rashford, they all missed the penalties, there was a lot of racism that was going around about those three players. And the people, like, of course, there was some English racists, but I'm pretty sure the majority were really giving them the support. But it's really important to stop like the racism that is going around, especially when some of these players mess up something. It's really important to lift them up. Look at how much far they got you guys. Like they got you into the Euro finals. Like it's important to see that and see the positives, and not always just take the negative side of it and create some negative comments about like the players and these racist comments that just shouldn't exist in the world we live in.
Yeah, I really feel like countries should stand behind their team and support their team through thick and thin, no matter what. It's like they are out there to represent you. You really shouldn't be hurling like abuse at them, right? They are out there for you, right? They want to represent. They're proud of their country, right? Don't let them down in your support.
Yeah, I think like football fans or soccer fans really have like a kind of mob mentality in a way, where it's like if they're starting to go in a direction of like positivity, we see like a lot of really positive impact coming from soccer. But there's also always a chance, like we saw recently, that like something's going a negative way. But then also like bounding that back from that, like the reaction to the hate that was going around on the soccer community part was like very powerful. Like Mark Rashford, he had like a whole like a little area, like a wall where everyone's posting like positive messages and trying to like really improve what was going on. I think it shows that like as a whole, like there's always going to be some drawbacks to having like such a tight knit community, but then also things always just come back.
Yeah. I hope that covers most of it. I hope we gave you, the listener, a good insight into sort of the global impact of soccer. And I think now would be an appropriate time. Let's keep things on the shorter side and wrap things up. We hope you enjoyed. There will definitely be more episodes of this to come, hopefully on a regular schedule. We also have another member who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, Nachiket. Yeah, poor guy's internet went out, and Arnav, our CEO, unfortunately will not be a recurring member. We'll hopefully have him on more often than not, because he's definitely a fun guy to talk to. You can find us at thethundershots.org or at the Thundershots on Instagram, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.